Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're sandwiched today in between two significant holidays for Canada and for the USA. It's July the 3rd. So a very special National Canadian Day for those yesterday celebrating it in Canada, and a very special congratulations and celebration for Independence Day for those in the USA. Of course, we don't call it Independence Day in England. We'd probably call it something different because you got independence from us. So maybe a different story there. But I'm wearing neutral colors today, you'll notice. Yes, so great to have you all with us. I want to start out, I shared on Dave's Monday morning Rev call yesterday a quote, which I want to start with today. And then I've asked Mike, if you follow Mike on Facebook, and I think everyone online here is connected, you'll notice that he's just come back from an incredible experience with Bob Proctor. And of course, I want to hear all about it, of course. So a little bit selfishly, I've asked him to fill us in. But it kind of gives us a preview as well, perhaps, to what we can expect in Orlando. Sorry, not in Orlando, in Toronto. Sorry, when that comes around in October, because he is one of our very special guests at that event. So I want to start with this quote in talking about Mark Antony. Mark Antony, as you may know, was the leader of the Roman armies after Julius Caesar, and he was very carefully, cleverly, strategically positioned himself. He positioned himself this way as the ultimate all-time master and leader of the whole world. What a wonderful title to be able to give yourself. People have had big egos in history, haven't they? Wonderful big egos. But he positioned himself that way. They became the rulers of the world, of the known world, I should say. And as such, he was the head of the armies and kind of the head of the troops. So he was it. He was the man. But sadly, that's not how he died. He let his guard down. He let things slip through the cracks. And interestingly, I'm not sure about you, but sometimes when you've got to fight for something, you can get weary of the fight and go, oh, do I need to have to keep on trying this hard to get results? Yeah. And yet what's interesting is through his career, he won fight after fight, battle after battle, and so on. But it wasn't the fight that beat him. It was the ease. When he won, when the world was his, when he had a life of luxury, it was that killed him. It's interesting that, isn't it? And as the Roman soldiers came, they sent a number of soldiers to come and collect him and to bring him back from the clutches of Cleopatra back into Roman soil. Handcuffed was the plan, because he had kind of deserted them, left them alone. He was reported as saying that it was Mark Antony that killed Mark Antony. You know, it's interesting that, isn't it? And now this was put to poetry by a man called William Haynes Little. In fact, what he said, Mark Antony's words was, perhaps in an effort to make the fact that he had defeated himself look okay, his exact words were, only Anthony could conquer Anthony. It's interesting that, isn't it? Meaning, no one else could do it, only I could, because I'm that great. Well, it's kind of an oxymoron, that, isn't it? You were kind of that stupid to do it. Yeah, so it kind of worked against him. But this was, I like this phrase by William Haynes Little, who said this, again, putting to poetry Anthony's final words to Cleopatra before he killed himself. He said, let not Caesar's servile minions mock the lion thus laid low. 'Twas no foreman's arm that felled him, 'twas his own that struck the blow. His who, pillowed on thy bosom, turned aside from glory's ray. His who, drunk with thy caresses, madly threw a world away. It's kind of sobering, isn't it, when you think about that situation? But I find it fascinating, and I want to kind of repeat this brief message before I kind of ask Mike to jump in, is often for each of us as entrepreneurs, whilst we don't always like the uphill battle to get to the top of the mountain where the victory resides, it's actually perhaps while we're lying in the valleys where our greatest risk for failure and defeat can be. It's in those places where we feel ease and comfort that can be the greatest snare to our opportunities. And I think with each of us as well, we've got great opportunity. There is always going to be challenge in building business. There's always going to be things that get in the way, always things that hold us back. A friend of mine, I've shared this a number of times, has said that in business, you are constantly in a cycle of going into or coming out of a crisis. And he said, and if you're smiling, then I know what's around the corner because I know where you are in that cycle. And I share that because it's important to be reminded that in business, in entrepreneurship as well, especially when we're the ones that lead our charge, we're always going to be going into or coming out of crisis, challenge, struggle, but it's not the struggles that will break us. It'll be the moments of ease and comfort, and it won't always be the other opportunities that people see around that will be the competition. Often it'll be ourselves. In the words of Anthony, only Anthony could conquer Anthony. And I think that applies to each of us. Only Ben, perhaps, can conquer Ben in this situation. I often find that it's when people lose sight of their own opportunities, when they lose sight of their own vision and purpose, it's that sees their downfall. It's interesting, isn't it? It is our own vision that we see with our mind's eye or with our heart that brings about the downfall of what we can really truly accomplish. Not the might of armies that we're striving to conquer and beat in order to achieve our goals in business. So with that being said, I know Mike has had some incredible paradigm shifts and some wonderful insights as a result of visiting with his friend, Bob Proctor. So I'd like to pass the time to him and again remind everyone that Bob will be a guest speaker in Toronto. So please do get your tickets booked. If you didn't see the message, and hopefully you've all seen it, I've also just recently sent out, in the spirit of talking about events, little incentive for people that have booked their tickets, that haven't yet booked their hotel rooms at the venue. Get that done over the next week, because I'm going to bring with me some of our exclusive European jewelry. And anyone that gets their hotel rooms booked at the venue within the next week, including those who've already done it, I'll give you a nice free piece of beautiful European exclusive jewelry as a thank you for getting the job done. So please make the most of that and spread the word, of course, so that everyone can enjoy. What I always get commented on when I come over is, when can we get that? How can we get our hands on that? We want it over here. You can't. You can only have it in the UK or in France or in the European markets, except for a moment like this. Okay, so seize the moment. So with that being said, Mike, fill us in. You went out and you saw Bob Proctor with your daughters. It looks like you had a fantastic family experience, but you also said you came away with some real fresh insights as a result. So fill us in. Share with us some of your thoughts.
Ben, I feel like a loaded gun right now. I just can't wait to start firing off here. So there's so much that I'm going to be sharing with you in the days and weeks to come, because I needed this refresher. It was an amazing venue. It was an amazing experience. It was a full-on production. I met some of the most incredible people. My daughters got to meet some Hollywood bigwigs, and now they've got indoors. They've passed they're at the front of the line instead of the back of the line in that experience. And so it was just an all-around amazing experience. But most importantly, through the eyes of my children, I'm seeing the impact that this is having on. They live with me. They know what I teach. They know what I talk about. And yet to have experienced it firsthand in that setting for 2.5 days, surrounded by people who were among the youngest. They weren't the youngest, but among the youngest in attendance. But to see how that has impacted them. And then we went through we went to dinners, we spoke and shared the insights of the day, the experiences. And I saw paradigms shift like that. And I'm talking about, if you can affect the paradigm of a 19 and 20-year-old about the potential of their life, their future, their purpose, wow, like look out. They've already on the bus ride to the airport coming home, they're planning the event they're going to host in Toronto for kids their age, and they're going to have Bob Proctor speak at their event, and it's going to be their summer business instead of a summer job next year.
Wow.
How's that for starters? So anyway, my daughter just texted me. She said the venue at the university holds 1,200 and so many people. She's on it. So it's awesome. Anyway, I want to just start with where I can. What is this? Oh, actually, you know what? Let me start with what Ben started with. Ben, you spoke about how Mark Antony lost it. What did he lose? Basically, the law of entropy took over. The law of entropy says everything from order tends to disorder. So if you just let your house go, eventually it's going to be covered in plant life and stuff. It's just going to disintegrate into dust. So heaven's first law is the law of order. It's one of the first things we talked about in the seminar. Heaven's first law, the law of order. What brings order to the disorder? What brings order to the chaos? There's only one thing, the creative process. And so if we were born in the likeness and image of the Creator, that means we were born with the faculties of creation. We're co-creators. And what brings order to our creation? What we think about, what we harbor in our conscious and subconscious mind, and our mind and our heart as it's spoken about. So let me just talk about something that seems to be important to all of us. What is this? Now, some of you will look at that and say, oh, it's a $10 bill. Well, yeah, that's what it is physically. But what it really is a representation, because I can exchange this for something. And how I acquired it is also a form of energy, right? It's energy. Essentially, this is just a reference to energy, a certain amount of energy. Now, how many of you would like some of this coming your way in abundance? So what is it that has to change? Not the work. The amount of work that you're doing is not what has to change. Because if you're putting a lot of work into something with a paradigm, with an idea that's faulty, you're just going to get more of the same. More work for nothing. What you want to do is create abundance, flow. And how do we create the flow? We've got to bring order to the chaos. And that's what will create the flow and the abundance. I'll give you an example. Most of us trust this because we can see it, touch it, feel it, and we know we can exchange it for something. We've experienced that, right? We trust our senses, the faculties of our body, which are sight, sound, we can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can taste, and we can touch. Those are the senses of the body. And we've learned and been taught all our life to trust what we see, trust what is in front of us, trust our senses. What are the higher senses? A dog can see. It can hear, it can smell, it can taste, it can touch. Every animal on this planet can do that. But is that what we are? Just mere animals? Or were we given faculties that are higher faculties, hence we are the greatest creation on earth? What are the higher faculties that allow us to do what dogs, trees, animals, plants can't do? We can change what we think about. We can change our frequency, our vibration. So the faculties, the higher faculties of our mind is perception, how we can choose to perceive something, our will, our ability to focus and create energy in a very limited space and focus an idea, imagination, what we can create in our mind that we have not yet seen or experienced, memory, intuition, which is that deeper sense of knowing, which comes from a higher faculty. In other words, it's something you can't see, but you can feel. And reason, our ability to think and reason something. So these are the higher faculties. Now, how many of us trust those faculties more than we trust our physical senses? And yet they are the higher faculties. And in fact, they are the source of order. It's what creates order. Our physical senses just reveal to us what's in front of us that has been displayed on the screen of our life in terms of the physical world. But where did that start? Where did the idea of money start? It wasn't a physical thing, it was an idea. So where did that start? It started in the higher faculties. And everything begins there. Everything goes from the higher to the lower. All creation, which is another law, it's the perpetual transmutation of energy from higher to lower. So we're moving energy into form constantly with the things that we bring order to. Now, if what you're bringing is chaos, then you're bringing chaos from the higher to the lower frequency. You're taking the energy of the supreme. By the way, where's the source of this money? Where's the source? Well, the answer is, of course, there is only one source. And therefore, the source is always present and always with you. So why are you limiting how much you're fashioning into form, manifesting into form? Where's the limitation coming from? If the source is infinite, the source is abundant, the source is omnipresent, the source is with you and within you, why are you allowing that source to only harness a small twinkling of what's possible? What's causing that? It's this. You're the filter. You're the thing that tunes into the frequency of what's available. An idea is just an idea. And then if you hold on to that idea, it will move into form and create what it is that you see in your mind. Well, if you did that with the faculties of your mind with purpose, then you would be creating all kinds of wondrous things. But we don't operate that way. We've been taught to trust what we see. So we're creating from what we've already created. We harbor and host the thoughts of our current reality and then perpetuate that reality. And so more leads to more. To them that have little, more will be taken. To them that have much, more will be given. What is that? It's a representation of the law. It's just simply revolving around and around. So what's revolving around? Are you creating from the higher space, or are you creating from the physical space? Are you looking at your results and saying, oh, I guess that's what it is. I'm going to have to work harder. Really? Keep working harder at the same thing. You're going to keep getting more of the same thing. And that's not what we want. We no longer can afford to do that. We must create. We must create. Creation is an amazing thing. Creation means it's coming from a higher place. It's coming from a place you've never been. That's where creation comes from. That's where the creative power comes from. So are you surprised? Why would anybody be surprised when you come up with this big idea and it starts to fight internally with where you are at? You got this big idea that's coming out of creation. It's coming out of the ethers. Something you haven't seen or experienced yet. And then there's this other side of you that says, yeah, but what do we know about that? Well, we know this is the way it is, and this is the way it is, and this is the truth, and this is... So we're in conflict. The second we come up with a better idea than the one we currently have for ourselves, we're going to put ourselves in conflict. Instantly, always, every time, no matter who you are. What do we call that feeling that we feel when these two ideas are in opposition or appear to be in opposition? We call that anxiety or fear. What does that lead to? I don't want to feel that, so I just better get rid of that idea somehow, because that's a bad idea. And then, of course, you ask everybody you know, what do you think of this idea? Where are they coming from? So you're asking somebody over here what they think about this. What could they possibly tell you about this? They know nothing about this. They only know about this. So they're going to tell you what your other mind is telling you. Oh, this is a bad idea. That's not a good idea, et cetera, et cetera. And so decisions that we should have made, we don't make. So what if this is just a natural process? Everything comes from the higher, moves into form into the lower, and it's a natural process to feel the anxiety. How do we break through the anxiety? How do we overcome the inertia of what's holding us back from what we really want? Because it's going to be always, no matter how much you attain and how far you go, if you want to go further, you're going to confront this reality. The reality is that every time you think of something bigger and better for yourself, for your family, for your community, for everything, you're going to run into the paradigm. You're going to run into that thing that says, no, but this is who I am. This is what I believe to be true. I got to trust this because this I know. But then again, here's something I read. Faith and fear both demand that you believe in something you cannot see. So we can either take all this energy and apply it to fear. Let's host that feeling of anxiety, Or we can switch over to faith. What is faith? What is the definition of faith? What does it mean to have faith? It means to dismiss the fear. It means to know that the fear is there and that you're not going to fight it. There's no point in fighting it. It's there. It's going to be there because it's a reflection of this thing called cognitive dissonance, this thing that says there's a higher vision of me and there's what I perceive as me. And those two right now are in conflict. So which one am I going to nurse? Which one am I going to water? Which one am I going to host? Which one am I going to focus on? Which one is the order that brings order to the chaos? Which one is going to give me a greater sense of order? So I have to feed one idea. That's it. I can only feed one idea. Now, feeding this one's easy. It takes nothing. And that's why he lost everything. Because it took nothing. No willpower, no discipline, nothing. None of the faculties of perception, will, imagination, memory, intuition, reason. It took nothing for him to host this idea. And that's why it disintegrated, because there was nothing really there. Somebody else came along with a better idea and took over. So you have to host this idea. This idea requires you to go against what you feel and experience as your norm and your truth. This idea requires the use of the higher faculties, will and perception. What's the perception? What is it that you must perceive? Current reality or what it is that you want to create? What must you hold with your willpower and keep focused? Bring the order here, because what comes here must move into form by law. It's an expression of law. You're not making the creation happen. The Creator is making the creation happen. You are simply hosting what is being created through you. You're the filter by which the infinite power becomes an order and creates. Period. It's nothing more complicated than that. We don't see ourselves as that because we've been taught false truths about who we are. We think of ourselves as lesser than who we are, smaller than who we are. We host the idea that I am somehow inferior to anybody or anything. And as long as we allow that truth to be the prisoner, the prison guard that keeps us in our box, we deserve exactly what we're getting. The greatest creation. So what do you deserve as the sons and daughters of the Creator? What do you deserve? It's entirely up to you what you deserve. I love this passage, and I don't want to get religious on you, but I just think it's so critical. I think it was the Pharisees who came up against Jesus, and they were really pissed with him. So they said, blasphemy. Let's kill this guy. Let's crucify this guy. He says, why do you want to do that? And they said, what you say is blasphemy. He says, and then he quoted Psalms, which he loved. Know ye not that ye are gods? Is it not written? Know ye not that ye are gods? So he quoted from their own book that they themselves didn't even accept as the people who knew it all about the situation. So if we really look at that and adopt that as the truth, and even if it's hard for you to accept that, just do it anyway. How do you get through the terror barrier? This is one of the concepts that Bob talked about. In fact, it's the very concept of what happens when I host a great idea about myself. I'm going to win the Paragon. That's a damn good idea. Do it. But my past, who I am, who I know, my list is small, blah, 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 blah. And you're going to just continually build ideas that are in conflict because that's the current reality you're operating from. But here's the beautiful truth about this. The frequency of this idea is connected to all things that resonate with this idea. All the things, the circumstances, the people, the places, the times, the events that will make this idea the truth. As long as you're thinking about this idea, you're resonating with all the things that make this idea the truth. You won't attract anything. You can't think this thought and host this feeling and think that this is going to attract. That's the hard work you're doing now. Oh, but we're going to get it done this year. Like that's you're talking to yourself in the conscious level, but the paradigm down here is saying that this is who I am. And you're attracting more of the same, no matter how hard you work. You've got to jump up to here and say, this is who I am. I'm the person who already won the Paragon. Because the creation began in the mind. Where did this begin? Before I received it, began as an idea. It's in the mind. Order comes reality. It starts from the ethers. It starts from the higher faculties, moves into the physical. Higher faculties into the physical. From above, so below. As above, so below. It starts up here and ends up here in terms of the physical screen of our minds, our reality. So whatever the idea is, this is its origin. Its origin is up here. It's not in the physical. So that's the source of creation. Where you and the source meet is in the faculties, in the higher faculties, and then it manifests as a physical reflection. So if we know that we're going to experience this contradiction within ourselves, we do it anyway. You break through the barrier, how? You do it anyway. You go against what feels not wrong, what goes against what feels abnormal. You go through it, because if you're going through it, that means what you're doing is you're acknowledging this reality in spite of how you feel. If you're holding a good idea, if it's a lawful idea, if it's a worthy idea, worthy of you, then, and this is the step that your mentor, your coach, or whoever you're working with, or even yourself tells you you need to do. This is a step you need to take, but it feels awful. It feels, I got to buy that ticket. I got to buy that airline ticket. I don't have the money. No, that's this person talking. Having the money is up here. Where the money is going to come from is up here. Who are the people that are going to be there is up here. You have to make the decision to be up here. It's a decision. To move from here to here begins with the decision to actually do it. And then you cut off all other possibilities by operating on blind faith. But it's not blind. It's the law. It's a lawful process. How many of you have to have faith that if I drop this pen, it's going to fall? How many of you need faith for that one? You pretty much know every time I let go of this pen, it's going to fall. It would amaze you if it didn't. No faith at all in the law of gravity required. The laws are the laws. It's just that the ignorance of the laws is what requires us to have faith. But if you have faith in the creative process, which is the law of creation, it's how it works. Evidence of that is everywhere, even in science. Then what do we have to do? We make a decision. When we make a decision, we flip the switch here, and there's the anxiety, kicks in. Boom, 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 right away, instantly. And you ignore it. Doesn't matter how it makes you feel. The feeling is coming from this place, not this place. Because if this is what you had attained, you wouldn't be feeling that. What would you be feeling? I tell my kids to do this all the time during exam season. I say, okay, the exam's over. You aced it. How does it feel? And they go, it feels amazing. That's the feeling you need to host. That's the feeling. If you're going to use the higher faculties, which is perception, will, imagination, use it wisely. Use it to create what you want to create. Don't use it to repeat what you've already repeated. What a waste of creation. There's so much more, but we're out of time.
Mike, that was awesome. Yeah, it's I love this principle of light and dark can't occupy the same space at the same time, which is what you're saying here, isn't it? It's if you're in a dark room and you want there to be light in the room, you open the blinds, turn the light on, and the darkness goes. Yeah, faith and optimism can't cohabit with doubt and fear. They don't go together in the same space. If you've got confidence and optimism, doubt and fear start to get diminished and overcome and conquered. But you can't have them both at the same time. I guess the call to action here is for each of us to take a moment before tonight is through or before today is through, and ask yourself the question as you look into your own heart regarding the future of your Niken business. Is it filled with hope and optimism and faith, like Mike was talking about? Or is it with doubt and fear, apprehension, skepticism, and hesitation? Because one feeds a certain path and another feeds another path, but they can't be in the same space at the same time. So it's very much worthwhile each of us taking stock ever so quickly doing a gut check, so to speak, and saying, where am I at? Because where you're at in here will have a significant impact, as Mike has been saying, a guaranteed impact on everything that gets manifest physically in your business. It really does all start inwardly, doesn't it? So that, I think, is a great message for us today, Mike. Thank you so much. And again, if you do look inwards as you do your gut check and you recognize that you are being led by fear versus faith, then flick the lights on. Open the blinds, metaphorically speaking. And the way to do that is to stay connected with those that have it. If you want to get that faith and confidence, associate and rub shoulders with those that feel it. Let it rub off on you. If you go into isolation, that's the greatest way to feed darkness, isn't it? Is to remove yourself from the confident people and feed the wrong force there. So let's not do that. Let's make sure that you associate and connect with those that feel it, get that fire burning bright, and then convert that positive energy into tangible outcomes. Because as Mike said right at the beginning, supply is unlimited because we have an unlimited creator, and creative processes are within us to engage with that, connect with that. And that's really where our purpose gets manifest, isn't it? When we feel the opportunity to create something that makes a difference and leaves a legacy. That's what humankind is all about. That's what drives us to climb the mountains versus just admire them from a distance. There's this innate desire for us to get to the top of something, anything, to conquer. That's just our nature. So let Niken be our mountain. Let us conquer it, and let's not have, in the words of Mark Anthony, conquer Anthony. Let us be the conquerors of our own destiny. And I think that would be the way to go. So thank you all very much. Great being with you all again. And have a great 4th of July, everyone in the US, for tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.